When Jake Miller stepped onto the creaking porch of his childhood home for the first time in 15 years, the air felt heavier, thick with memories he thought he'd buried forever. He had survived war zones, seen friends fall beside him, and faced the kind of fear that turns boys into men overnight. But nothing made his heart pound harder than standing there, staring at the house where it all began, and where something still felt unfinished. At his side, his loyal companion, Ranger, a golden retriever trained to detect explosives, nudged his leg as if sensing the storm brewing inside his heart. Jake took a deep breath. A let's go home, boy. He had no idea that within a few hours, Ranger would uncover something that would change everything he thought he knew about his past. The Miller family home stood at the edge of Pinewood, a small town that hadn't changed much. Cracked sidewalks, flickering streetlights, and the same rusted mailbox with his father's name half-faded, Thomas Miller. Jake's father had passed away while Jake was overseas. His mother moved to a care home soon after, leaving the house empty. For Jake, returning wasn't just about memories. It was about facing the silence that haunted him since his last goodbye before deployment. Inside, the house was frozen in time. Family pictures hung on dusty walls. A smiling young boy with his parents, and beside them, the same old Labrador, Max, who died when Jake was 12. Jake ran his fingers over a photo frame and whispered, "Hey, Dad, I'm home." That night, he unpacked lightly. Just his duffel bag, a folded flag, and Ranger's bed, the house groaned as the wind brushed through the cracks. It felt alive, as if watching him. The next morning, Jake started cleaning the basement, a place he'd avoided as a kid. His dad used to tell him it was just storage, nothing worth looking at. But Ranger was restless. He sniffed around the old boxes, pawing at the concrete floor near a wooden shelf. Jake frowned. "What is it, buddy?" Ranger whined and scratched harder, his nose pressed against a small patch of uneven flooring. When Jake moved the shelf aside, his flashlight beam caught a faint metal outline in the floor. A rectangular door with a rusty handle. A hidden door. His pulse quickened. He pulled it open with effort, the hinges groaning. A draft of cold, stale air rushed up. A narrow staircase led downward, deeper than the basement itself. For a moment, Jake hesitated. He had faced enemy fire before, but this was different. It was personal. He grabbed a flashlight. "Stay close, Ranger." The stairs led to a small underground room. Dust-covered furniture, old tools, and stacks of boxes lined the walls. But what caught Jake's eye was a large trunk in the corner, locked with an iron clasp. He knelt and forced it open with a crowbar. Inside were old documents, letters, and military medals. Not his father's, but another name, a Private Samuel Hayes. Jake frowned. The name didn't match anyone in his family. Beneath the medals was a photograph. His father, young and smiling, standing beside a man who looked eerily familiar. Jake flipped the photo over, in faded ink, for Thomas still stands. Sam. Confused, Jake began reading the letters. They told the story of two soldiers, his father and Samuel, who had fought together in Vietnam. Sam had saved Thomas's life, but never made it home. His remains were reported missing, but one letter, dated years after the war, stunned Jake. "Tom, if anyone finds this, it means I couldn't keep it hidden any longer. What we found overseas wasn't meant to be seen. I buried it here in case they ever come looking. Forgive me." Jake's heart raced. Beneath the letters lay a small weathered wooden box. Inside it, an old camera roll and a locket containing two photos, one of Samuel's family and one of Jake as a baby. Jake's eyes widened. His father had known Sam's family personally. Then it hit him. Samuel Hayes wasn't just his father's comrade. He was Jake's biological uncle, the brother his father never spoke of. That night, Jake sat in silence, staring at the box. Everything he thought he knew about his family had shifted. His father had hidden this secret, maybe to protect him, maybe out of guilt. He developed the old camera roll the next day in town. The photos revealed soldiers standing beside crates marked classified, government property. One photo showed Samuel and Thomas carrying a strange metal container with documents labeled Operation Echo. Jake realized his father had hidden evidence of a military cover-up, something they were never meant to keep. But Jake didn't care about the politics. What mattered was the truth, that his father's silence wasn't coldness, but sacrifice. He'd carried that burden alone to protect his family. Jake buried the letters and medals beside his father's grave. As the wind rustled the trees, he whispered, Dad, I understand now. You didn't hide from the truth. You carried it for us. Ranger barked softly as if in agreement. Jake restored the house, keeping the hidden room as a memorial, a tribute to two soldiers who had risked everything for each other and for family. He started volunteering at the local Veterans Center, sharing his story to help others confront their own hidden wars, the ones fought inside long after the battlefield is gone. In his final message to the camera for a local interview, Jake said, coming home doesn't always mean peace. Sometimes it means facing what you've been running from. But when you do, when you finally open those hidden doors, you don't just find the past, you find yourself. As he walked through the yard with Ranger trotting happily beside him, the sun broke through the clouds. The same home, but a new beginning. The next morning, sunlight broke through the cracked window blinds, dust swirling like golden snow in the still air. Jake sat at the kitchen table, nursing a cup of black coffee. The silence felt heavier, here, not peaceful but lonely. He glanced around the kitchen that once smelled of his pancakes and laughter. Now it was just hollow echoes and peeling wallpaper. Ranger sat beside him, head resting on his knee, eyes fixed on the basement door. Jake frowned. Ranger tilted his head, ears perked. It wasn't just curiosity, it was instinct. Something down there was calling to him. Jake hadn't been down to the basement since he was a teenager. His father always told him it was just a storage. But the way he'd said it, with that quiet firmness, always made Jake wonder what really lay beneath. He grabbed a flashlight and pushed the door open. The old wooden stairs creaked under his boots. The air was damp, thick with the smell of earth and rust. Ranger led the way, sniffing every corner like a detective on a mission. Boxes, old tools, and dusty furniture cluttered the space. Nothing seemed out of place until Ranger stopped. He stood still, nose pressed to the floor near an old wooden shelf. Then he started scratching. Hard. Jake stepped closer. What is it, Ranger? The dog let out a low whine and kept digging at the concrete with his paws. Jake crouched down and brushed away a layer of dust, revealing a faint metal outline. His pulse quickened. He moved the shelf aside, and there it was. A metal hatch set into the floor, nearly invisible under years of grime. Jake wiped the surface clean. It had a rusty handle, heavy and cold to the touch. He hesitated. Dad, what were you hiding down here? Ranger barked once, sharp and eager, as if urging him forward. Jake gripped the handle and pulled. The hinges groaned like something waking from a long sleep. A rush of cold, stale air escaped, carrying the scent of damp stone and forgotten years. The staircase spiraled downward, narrower and older than the basement itself. He shone his flashlight into the darkness, the beam trembling slightly in his hand. Stay close, Ranger. The dog moved first, cautious but fearless. Jake followed, one slow step at a time. The deeper they went, the quieter the world became. Even the sound of their breathing felt muffled. At the bottom, the space opened into a small underground room. Dust coated everything. Crates, old shelves, a rusted lantern, and in the far corner, a large trunk. Jake's flashlight caught something carved into the wood above it. For TM, his father's initials. Heart pounding, Jake knelt beside it. The trunk was locked, but years of rust gave way easily under the pressure of his army knife. The lid creaked open. Inside, layers of old letters, envelopes sealed with wax, and a bundle of photographs tied with a leather strap. The air smelled like age and memory. He picked up one photograph and froze. Two young men in military uniforms stood smiling beside an army jeep. One of them was clearly his father, the other a stranger. But something about that stranger's face felt familiar. Jake flipped it over. On the back in faded handwriting, Tom, for the promise we made. Never forget. Sam. Jake's mind spun. Who was Sam, and what was the promise? He reached deeper into the trunk and found something wrapped in oilcloth, a small wooden box. Inside it were two items. A silver military tag engraved Samuel Hayes and a child's photo. The child in the photo was Jake. His breath caught. His heart raced. He whispered, Dad, what did you do? Ranger whimpered softly, pressing his head against Jake's hand, grounding him back to the moment. As Jake sat there in the dim light, the truth began to flicker like an image half seen. Pieces of a secret buried for decades, hidden beneath the home he thought he knew. And now that the door had been opened, there was no going back. Jake turned off the flashlight and sat in silence. He could almost hear his father's voice echoing through the dark. Some things, son, are better left buried. But Jake wasn't that boy anymore. He had faced war. He had faced death. Death. In it. Now he would face the truth. As he climbed back up the stairs with Ranger close behind, the old wooden house groaned once more, not in protest, but as if waking up.